this computer. Okay, we are recording. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody to our alumni event. We're joined today with Andrew Miller, Abby Stawick, and Courtney Barber, who are recent graduates of the IU Interior Design program. We're going to talk a little bit about what they've been doing, any kind of like tips and tricks that they might have for graduating right now in the middle of a pandemic, and anything that they really want to talk about. And then we'll have some room for questions at the end if we have any. So I think I'm going to pass it off to Andy to get started.
Yeah, definitely. Oh gosh, hold on. All right. So hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Miller. I'm just going to go a little bit about me, what I did at IU, what I'm currently doing now, and then also talk about what it's like to graduate into the pandemic and try to get a job. And then also kind of like about my job in general and like what a daily tasks and things are like. So like I said before, I'm Andrew Miller. I graduated in 2020, so in May. So I was, out of the people here, I was the only one that was still in school when it hit. So that was kind of an interesting situation. I studied interior design with minors in art history and environmental and sustainability studies. I also started the club IIDA at IU with the help of both Abby Stawick and Catherine Pattis. And I was an undergraduate teaching assistant, and I also gave some tours of our department while I was around to some freshmen coming in. Currently, I work at Gibraltar Design Incorporated. It's on the north side of Indianapolis, really just like 5 minutes away from Carmel. It's very close. And we strictly do education. So we do K through 12 mostly, and we do about 25% higher education too, so university work. Also, my official title is interior designer there. I know some people start off and they're junior designers. It really depends per company, but I wanted to make sure I specified that because that's going to have to do with some other things I've talked about later about some of my benefits and things like that. Also, very exciting, this is something that I just decided recently, but I am going to pursue a master's degree in architecture. I'm going to the University of Oregon this summer, and I'm going to focus on ecological design for my primary focus. So that's very exciting for the future. So talking a little bit about graduating into the pandemic. So I'm not going to lie, it totally sucked. Like a lot. I mean, especially since I don't know if people are going to be watching this from like other universities and stuff, but how IU worked is essentially we went home for spring break and then we never came back. So I didn't get to say goodbye to a lot of my friends that lived out of state. I also didn't get to, I graduated like technically, but I didn't walk at all. And I also, you know, some of the fun things at the end of the year, like we had several things planned for IIDA and also like Little Five and some events and stuff totally ripped out of my hands. So kind of sucked a lot. So it's definitely something I definitely feel for people who are currently experiencing that now. I know it's not exactly the same because you guys are doing your whole senior year right now during the pandemic, but I definitely get kind of what you're feeling right now. Also, I did have difficulty finding a job. I was actually very, very lucky that I had a connection already. So someone at the firm I work at now, Gibraltar, reached out to a professor at Indiana University and asked for a suggestion, and they suggested me. And then I ended up getting an interview and I started my job not right after graduation. It was like mid-June. So I applied kind of right around graduation, and then I didn't hear back for about a month and a half. And then I interviewed and I got the job pretty quickly. So that just kind of tells you guys how important networking and connections and stuff is, because I would not have this job whatsoever if one, I didn't have a relationship with my teachers, and two, if I wasn't involved and was a good student, because, you know, people will be reaching out directly to your professors, and sometimes they're not going to want to interview a million people. So rather than just sending it out generally, they're going to ask for, give me 2 or 3 people. So that's something that to consider, is like networking is definitely very important with your professors and everything, because I would be literally living underneath an underpass, homeless somewhere without that. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say about graduating into the pandemic, I was very lucky. Most people I know graduated into the pandemic without any sort of, a lot of people I know didn't have jobs at all, or they had internships and they were revoked. I actually only know of one other person I graduated with that also had a job around the time of graduation. So hopefully that's a little bit better for you guys now, just because, everything's starting to calm down a little bit. I don't want to, knock on every wood surface around me, but yeah, I just hope that it's better for you guys, definitely from my class. I'm also, okay, so now I'm going to go a little bit into like what my work life is for, and talk about some logistics. One of the things that I'm really passionate about, and something that it's so hard to find before I graduated, is talking about like what a typical salary is and pension and all that stuff. And I know it's like super taboo, but I'm okay talking about mine, and I thought it would be really helpful for some of you guys. So I'm going to talk about how much I make, what are my benefits, and within context of my job, of course, too, because everyone's going to be very, very different. So I want to remind everyone that I do work at a commercial firm. It does strictly education, and I was very lucky that I came in with a little bit of experience on my resume as well, so that obviously influenced it. But currently, I make salary, so I make $42,500 a year. That is after a $1,000 raise at my 6-month mark. So I started with 41,000, and then that also comes with kind of a standard package for medical care. So I have standard medical along with dental and vision. I don't have any of those because I'm under 26, so I opted out to be still underneath my parents. But that was something that was offered to me. My job also specifically brings in someone from Aflac to kind of do additional insurances if you feel like you want to do that. And then also I have a 401k through them. It is a Roth IRA. If you want to learn more about that, I'm probably not the person to tell you about it. Google stuff, talk to a financial advisor. But yeah, that's something that I thought was really, really helpful, learning everything, because I was totally lost. I mean, just to give you reference, I make $42,000 a year. When they asked me how much I wanted, I had no idea. So I just highballed as much as possible. So I think I put like 55,000 or something, which I knew was ridiculous for starting pay in Indianapolis. But I was like, I'm not going to put something too low and have them just say, okay. So I like being transparent about this type of stuff, just because I feel like it educates people a lot of what they might expect in my position. Obviously, it's going to be very different in different places. I know residential is very different than commercial as well. So don't expect this exactly. Just for another reference, I know someone who got a job in Washington, D.C., which is obviously has a lot higher state of living. I'm not going to say who it is, of course, but I know their starting pay was $60,000 a year. So just obviously different cities are very different industries are very different. So maybe that's not as helpful as possible, but I wanted to make sure that I at least gave you a little bit to hold on to. Kind of moving on to what my job looks like, what a typical day is, and kind of some things I've taken away from working for almost a year now. So generally, I know a lot of interior designers say this, but there is no typical day. I will say there's more typical days than others. Like, I'm not going out to site visits every single day, things like that. I do mostly work on construction documents overall. I know that's not what a lot of you probably want to hear, but it's just the reality of it. I would say in terms of my entire job of like from start to finish for the project, maybe like about 20 to 25% is the actual design, and the rest is like actually putting it in practice and putting all the little keynotes and drawing elevations and drawing floor plans. My company only uses AutoCAD. We do a little bit in Revit, but I have not personally worked in Revit. So that's also a little bit reference. Maybe if you're working on Revit at your company, it might be a little bit faster and therefore a little bit more design, but it really depends per company. I also want to acknowledge that I'm assigned my own projects. I would say that's very rare for someone who's just starting off in the field. I've talked to several other people, and nobody else I know that's in my age, even people that are like a year above me and have a whole year underneath their belt more than I do aren't working on their own projects and picking out their own designs. I think my company was a little bit desperate for designers. I'm one of a team of 3 people in our company, which is 30 people. So there's only 3 interior designers. There's my boss, and then there's me and another interior designer that work under her. So that's, I assume, why I'm working on my own projects. I will say everything is still approved and passed by my boss. I can't just do whatever I want. But I don't want to give people a false impression also that they're going to start off and they're going to be able to do all these crazy fun designs, because that's not necessarily the case all the time. I feel like I'm very lucky to be able to be in a position that I am doing that. I also do talk with the clients directly, and I do present to the clients directly. I always have someone there with me to kind of back up if they ask a question I don't know. Usually it's logistics stuff or stuff about money that I don't know anything about the budget for the projects typically. That is also a part of being in education, where nothing I'm doing is usually crazy over the top, where the interiors are going to put it over budget. Usually the architects are going to put it over budget. So maybe, I'm sure that's also very different in a few other firms. Let's see, what else do I have on my list? So one thing that I was a little bit disappointed starting off, and I'm not sure about other firms, but I know I have to talk to a few people. So I don't space plan walls at all. My entire job is picking out finishes, and also I space plan with furniture. So what that means basically is I, alongside with the architects, put furniture into rooms so we can kind of decide how big or small a room should be. And they're actually the ones picking out the walls and like doing all that stuff, as well as I can always tell the architects, hey, I think it'd be really good for the design if we move this wall here, because then we can do this, this, and this. And that's definitely an option. I'm not saying that I am given a base plan and I just have to make it work. It's always a collaborative effort, but I do want to make sure that I say that I don't do the level of design that we did in school in my current job. I definitely only do furniture, finishes, and then putting all that in practice through construction documents. Also, I do a lot of interior elevations and casework elevations. I don't think I did any casework elevations in school. So that's just like a reference for what my job looks like. So I'm constantly drawing what all the like cabinets and stuff in different spaces and stuff will look like, which I do feel like that might be a big part of the job. I've talked to a few different interior designers and it seems like they all do that quite a bit. And then also something that I think is really interesting, because I never even thought about it in school too much, but I think would be cool to implement into some of your projects, is I always work on floor pattern plans. So actually thinking about what's on the floor and doing a design for materials on the floor. I remember when I was in school, I felt like a lot of what I did is like I just picked a carpet for a room and that was good, or that was it. And that's not what our design program at our company does too much. So that's another outlet for some fun stuff to do. I'm almost done. I don't want to eat up too much time. I want to let the other people speak, but I want to talk a little bit about kind of like work life and just like some things I've taken away from working for about a year now. One thing that I really want to make sure that I say is definitely prioritize work-life balance like a lot, because it can be so not tempting, but almost like pressuring to spend all your time at work. It's not good. Do not get in a habit of it. And I understand if you're a young designer, you're going to be probably spending more time at work than like some other designers, kind of getting your footing and things like that. But I really want to make sure people prioritize work-life balance, because that's something that I feel like I have to fight for a little bit. It's very important, and your time is valuable. So just like kind of put your foot down a little bit at some point, because I had to do that, definitely. Let's say also your reps for all your products are your friends. Make friends with them. Unfortunately, our space, our industry is kind of very like cliquey and gossip heavy, and people will talk. And if you left, that kind of connects to my next point, which is don't burn any bridges. If you left a company poorly or on bad terms, everyone in that whole city knows about that now. So you are not going, I'm not going to say you can't find another job, but I think it's going to affect people a lot more than they realize it. Like someone who was working at my company a couple months ago, and they put in their 2 weeks, which is totally fine, of course, if the company is not a good fit. But then after 1 week, she didn't show up to work, and there was like a note on my boss's desk that had her keys in it. And apparently no one told me what was in it because I'm not, management, but apparently there were some less than kind things in that note. And now, oh, that's my timer. And now I'm afraid for her if she ever wants to leave the job she's now at now, because people are going to know if she wants to stay in Indianapolis, kind of stuff like that, because it's not like people intentionally gossip, but one person tells one person and then everyone will find out. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. And that's about it. The last thing I just have is make sure you remember that you are, like, your job matters and you're a vital part of the team. Working alongside architects, remember that architects are not necessarily your bosses, and they might kind of sometimes treat you like an intern sometimes, and that's not your job. So make sure you kind of put your foot down at a certain point. I'm not saying all architects by any means whatsoever, but when you're working as something that is like an interior designer to an architect, that can definitely happen sometimes. So that's the last thing I had on my little bullet point. So I'm sorry for going over for a couple minutes, but I think that's all I have. So
no worries whatsoever, Andy. Thank you so much for talking. And I think I'm going to pass it off to Abby next.
Hello. This is so fun being on the Zoom call, because I just remember when I was in school and I always would try to soak up all the information from the people that would come in, talk to us, and blah, blah, blah. And now I'm one of those people. It's just so weird. But anyways, so I went to IU. I was in the same year as Andy, but I graduated a semester early. I actually took 3.5 years for my design degree, because I studied abroad in Barcelona, and at the time that study abroad program counted as a semester studio, so I got to graduate early, but I really didn't graduate early. I graduated in 5.5 years because, I took the long way around, but it's okay. I got my degree and I'm really happy with what I graduated with. So what did I do at IU? I was the vice president my senior year, the vice president of what was DSSO. That's not what it's called anymore, right? Yeah. What's it called now?
It's IIDA now.
Just IIDA. Yeah, and I remember proposing that to Andy because he was going to be president the next year of the club, and now here we are. So that's cool. So we did that, and what else? After graduation, so I graduated December 2019. So this was the semester right before COVID hit. And I knew once I graduated, I didn't want to get a job right away. So I went to Europe and backpacked for 2 months by myself. And it was great. It was amazing. I chose to do that because I didn't want to have to risk maybe doing it down the line and just not having the time for it or the money for it, or having, responsibilities that wouldn't allow me to do that. So I just did it right after graduation. Little treat to myself, but worked my way and paid for it, and it was great. But I came back to COVID. So I came back in March of 2020. But it was interesting because I saw it in Europe, and I was there when Italy got hit, and I was in Austria when Italy got hit. And I just remember rooming with people in the hostel being from Italy and just came from Italy, and, freaking out. And this is the first time I had heard of COVID, like, oh my God, what is this? But yeah, and then did that. I came back in March, And from there, I was like, all right, it's time to find a job. So I started looking around and updated my portfolio for a little bit. And honestly, I found this job just by networking. I made a lot of phone calls. So LinkedIn was like my best friend. I went on and reached out to people in the industry in the area and asked them if they could talk for even like 15 minutes on the phone. Like COVID was going on. Obviously, I wasn't going to meet them in person. So just did what I could and reached out. And I actually got like 6 good phone calls with people in the industry. And now that they're people that I can contact for anything else in the industry. So that was good. And I got my current job. I work at a residential firm, and how I got that, honestly, I just Googled firms in the Indianapolis area and I reached out to all of them and said, hey, this is what I'm interested in. This is my qualifications. This is my resume, my portfolio. Would love to talk to you, whatever. And I finally got a response back from a residential firm in Indianapolis called House Love, and they're in Broad Ripple. I still work there currently. I've been there since July, so almost 9 months now. And residential firm, like I said, I'm a junior designer. So I know Andy was talking earlier about kind of the difference in like positions between like firms and starting out and what people offer. My firm, I was offered a junior designer position. So the way it's set up in my company is we have the owner and then we have lead designers and we have junior designers. So I'm under 2 leads right now. And basically what I do, I'm like the back end of everything, like their right-hand man. So like my main priority is CAD. I'm on all the site visits. I'm taking all the notes on the site visits. I contact the clients with the notes. I do a lot of pricing, do a lot of scheduling, make proposals, invoices, POs. Pretty much just like the back end work, like I said. And also to go off Andy, the work-life balance part. I do love that about my job because we are 9 to 5 every Monday through Friday. And my boss is she's really good at like acknowledging that. And I normally don't work later or earlier. So that's really nice. And I really appreciate that about my schedule. What else can I talk to you about? So yeah, I'm a junior designer and residential firm. So as a junior designer, I guess I could talk more about that. I don't really make any of the design calls, like any design decisions necessarily. I sit in and I participate, but ultimately that's up to the lead designer. I can give my feedback and do that, but I mostly do like the back end stuff. I've also been training 2 new lead designers right now, which has been interesting, even though I'm still a junior designer. So a lot of learning experience with that. It's been fun, just having to know like what's involved in every project and being able to communicate that with the new people that you bring on. And it's a lot, but it's fun, and it's, if you love design, then obviously it's not work. There was something else I was gonna tell you guys. I can't remember. But that's kind of like my short spiel.
If you
Am
think
I missing anything?
Oh no, you covered everything. But if you think of anything that you want to add at the end, there totally will be time to.
Cool. Okay.
Awesome. Well, I think I'm going to pass it back to Courtney, who's going to talk a little bit more now. Oh, you are muted now, Courtney. There we go.
Sorry. I'm back. So my wife I went out, fun, but now I'm back. I did have just a short 3-slide PowerPoint. I will actually send that to Catherine and then she can upload it whenever. But it was really just kind of, so my name's Courtney Barber or Mills Paul, I guess. I got married this last year. And after college, so I graduated in 2019. So I made it out well before the pandemic, and I've had a couple years of working. I am a residential associate designer at Bailey and Weiler Design Build here in Bloomington, Indiana, actually. And I received that position. Very luckily, one of my classmates senior year was moving out of state for a job opportunity and had been interning at this firm, and they were looking for somebody to fill his internship position. And so my whole second semester, I actually got to intern with Bailey and Weiler, kind of as just, doing a lot of CAD drawings and things like that for them, and really just learning how their company works for a whole semester, which was really nice. Getting through that, and then they offered me a position a couple weeks before graduation. So I was very, very blessed in that regard. But Bailey and Weiler is a design build firm. So we actually do the entire custom home or remodel in-house. Occasionally we do some commercial projects, but they're definitely smaller scale. Typically if we have clients who own, their own dental firm, or if they own their own family practice or something, we'll come in and do work for their building commercially. But it usually stems from us having a residential past with them. So we get to do everything from meeting the clients at ground zero, and I actually get brought in on that, to helping them kind of just develop their idea of their dream home or their space. Then we move that through what we call pre-construction, which is a lot of planning, budgeting. One of the things that I have found with residential that is totally different than commercial, I think, is we're a lot smaller of a firm. There's only 15 of us, and budget is almost one of our most important driving factors on our projects, because clients have a very clear number in their head of what they want or what they can or are willing to spend. And so keeping that number involved through the whole design process is very important. And then once we like to tell our clients, we want your design, your budget, and then your selections all to be in line. And once we settle and they're comfortable and our team is comfortable, design team, then they can sign a construction contract and move into that phase. And that also is our team building. So I actually get to pick out all the faucets and fixtures and the flooring and the fun stuff. And one of my new positions in the last year that they've moved me up into is selections coordinator. So I actually am, like I said, we're a smaller company. Our design team is only 2 or 3 people out of the 15. And then we have an office administrator and the 2 owners, and we have an estimator. And so I get to do all of the selections and all of the ordering for every project, whether it's a new home or a small remodel, which is a lot. And my job title has probably changed 12 times in the past 2 years since graduating. One of the things to consider when you're picking what to do after college is, the residential or commercial question. Everybody has their niche, and I knew very early on I wanted to be residential. And what I didn't realize with that is it's a lot more flexibility. I know Andy kind of earlier touched on pay a little bit, and he touched on, what his day-to-day is kind of like with that. And what I would tell you in regards to residential is it's a push and pull. So just to let you guys know, I am hourly. I have gotten a $1 raise, so I'm currently at $19.50 an hour, which after Christmas bonuses and things like that. I think last year I brought home about 40,000. But like I said, we are a smaller firm, so we do get Christmas bonuses and we do get some health care coverage and benefits like that. They do offer a simple IRA, which again, like Andy said, I'm not the person to ask about finances. But it's just kind of a different, more intimate way of thinking. But with that, I get a lot of flexibility. I get to be on job sites almost every day. I get to work with my clients to the point where I could say the last project that I worked on, which was my first whole home, start to finish with this company, I know just as well, if not a little bit better than the homeowners. Every stair tread, every newel post, every faucet, I put just as much thought and detail as the clients did when choosing. So, and with that being said, one of my flexibility things that I get to bonus from is I get to work from home quite a bit. If we have meetings in the office, that's okay. Since COVID, I guess pre-pandemic, I was in the office a little bit more. Now we do a lot of Zoom calls and things, but my main office is here at home, which is something to consider later on down the road if you want to be in an office or in an in-home setting. So yeah, I knew I wanted to be in residential, and like I said, there are some pros and cons, but as far as my involvement in the projects and just that intimacy that I feel like I get with my clients, I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I get to learn so much about all the other ends and pieces, cabinetry makers, and we work with subcontractors as well. So your electricians, your plumbers, and I guess into my third part of my conversation here is really just what I've learned and kind of my advice. Ask a billion questions every day. I still just today was on site and apologized to my site lead for asking questions because I probably drive them crazy. But there are things that we learn in college and you don't fully absorb them until you're in the field and somebody's asking you, you know, if they roughed in plumbing for that freestanding tub. And off the top of your head, you have to know if they did or not and where it was and if it was done correctly. And so a lot of those little details do fall on my shoulders sometimes, which is terrifying and exciting. And even if you're in a commercial setting, I feel like asking those questions and absorbing the office and your coworkers and how they handle jobs is super important. And then, like I said before, residential is kind of my passion, but if commercial is your passion, if drawing, you know, being in CAD is your passion, if you find your niche and, you know, you love what you do, I don't feel like you'll go to work a day in your life. I have some stressful days, especially post-pandemic. We're very busy, but every day after I decompress and vent to my husband, I do sit back and think, holy crap, I'm so lucky to get to do what I went to school for and what I love. So I think that's my biggest advice moving forward is really think about what field you want to move into and what you want your life to look like after college and how your job and life can kind of coexist. I think that's it for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, Courtney. I do know that Abby wanted to bring one more thing up, so I'll give her some time to talk about that now.
I just remembered right when Courtney started talking. The benefits and the hourly and all that kind of stuff. I just wanted to touch on that. I am hourly as well. I'm also at a residential firm, so kind of the same thing as Courtney. I, however, do not get any benefits. It's a very, very small firm. We have 6 designers, 1 owner, and we also have a storefront. I didn't tell you guys that. It's storefront, and then the back end of the building is our office. So yeah, pros and cons. Like a smaller firm, you might not get as many benefits, but it also is like Like the relationship between all of us is great. Like you really get along. I mean, for the most part, we all get along, and I really enjoy my coworkers. So it just kind of depends on like what work environment you want to work for and what you're looking to get out of design and finding your niche, kind of like Courtney said too. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you for adding that.
Yep.
And we do have some time for any questions, if you have a question, Dorian. But I did want to just ask one kind of thing, put you guys on the spot real quick. Where do you guys see yourselves in the next 5 or even 10 years? I think that'll give some important information to the people watching this. So if you could touch on that just a little bit. I know this is putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I can chime in really quick. Actually, just piggybacking real quick off of kind of talking about the money a little bit. I didn't realize that I was the only one salaried. So I do want to talk really quick about salary. Kind of is very love-hate, because salary is great because it's stability, but also there's no such thing as overtime, and there's no such thing as like clocking in. So I make the same amount of money whether I work 60 hours or 30 hours. I mean, I've never worked a 30-hour week, but that's sorry. But whether you work like a normal week or you work a super long week, you won't get overtime. So it's very love-hate, because you know, that's just something to consider. But kind of talking about 5-10 years down the line, that's like a big question. Well, like I said earlier, and I know Dorian didn't hear this, but I am going to grad school for architecture. This summer, I'm going to University of Oregon, and then focusing on ecological design. So that's a 3-year program. So in 5 years, I'm hoping to hopefully still be living in the Pacific Northwest and working at a firm that aligns with my values. Something that I realized when I started my firm, I started at this firm, is that it's hard in the Midwest. I've talked to so many different firms, finding any firm that prioritizes sustainability, because it's really by client if they want it or not. And I will say, I don't want to say that it doesn't exist, because there's definitely clients that want it, but it's like no firm that I found really specializes in it or focuses in it. And I'm not saying there isn't any, but I just can't find any. So I'm hoping to work at a firm that aligns with my personal values a little bit more. And 10 years down the line, who knows? If I can't find something that really works, maybe I'll start my own thing. We'll see. That sounds so scary and far away, like to me, but really, I mean, I really have a strong passion for sustainability. So if I feel like the best thing for me is to start some sort of architectural sustainability consulting thing where I work with firms or something and do only that, that might be something that I'll just have to carve out a space for myself for. So that's me for the next few years.
Yay. I guess I'll go. I have actually have been interviewing around right now, and they asked me this question too, and I'm not a big fan of the question, because I don't like to like put myself in a box, so I'm not exactly sure. I mean, none of us really know, obviously, but I would say I want to toy around in the commercial field a little bit. So potentially at a commercial firm, whether that's an indie or in the Midwest. I don't see myself venturing off too far from Indianapolis. My family's here and just reasons, but and then yeah, career-wise, I'd also like to have my own clients. I don't have my own clients at the moment. So working towards that and being able to make more decisions in my position, that's kind of what I'm looking for. Commercial-wise, I think I want to do more like museums, music venues, like libraries, kind of like artistic buildings. But I'm open. I'm such a sponge right now, and I think that's good advice for all of you, is to just be a sponge and see what you like and what you don't like, because it's good to learn like what you don't like too, because it'll lead you towards what you do like. So Yeah.
Right. I guess in 5 years, so I don't want to jinx myself. Really happy with where I'm at. I love residential, so I can't see myself changing. And I love Bloomington. My husband and I we were from way up north Indiana. We'll probably always be Midwesterners because of family and things like that. So I don't see us venturing far, but definitely residential, hopefully still with my firm. I, in all of college, worked the same job and only had 3 internships. I hate change. So I like to get my feet planted and stay where I can. I would like my job, like I said, offers a lot of flexibility. So hopefully in the next 5 years, kids, I would say. And in the next 10, I think I would just like to move up in my company. We are smaller. My 2 owners are older. And they've mentioned to me a couple times, none of their children really have any interest in the company or taking over. And a lot of their kids are older already. And so they're kind of keeping their eyes open on somebody who wants to step up and take on this endeavor when they're ready to take a step back. So I'd like to just kind of hang out where I am and keep learning. Like Abby said, keep sponging it up. My boss comes in weekly and says he sits down at one of the son's track meets here at the high school and runs into a client and draws up a new bathroom for her at the track meet on his iPad. And then Monday morning she comes into the office, and if that can be where I am in 10 years, I would not complain. So that's kind of my goal.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for sharing that. I think it's really important to acknowledge that there's so many different places and ways that you can take this degree. So I think that's very important to hear kind of like what you guys are thinking. Dorian, do you have any questions? If not, this will be the end.
Is there ever a time when I don't have something to say?
Well,
I've had
now
all of
is
you
your
in
chance.
class, you know this.
It's so nice to see you, Dorian.
It's wonderful to see you guys too. I was checking earlier to make sure this was recording because I was like, why aren't more people not? So
Yeah.
hopefully your wisdom will be passed on through the recording.
Mhm.
One thing that stood out to me that, if I am going to insert myself almost like I'm not an alumni of this program, but I'm an alumni who also has experience that can, compare it to what you guys are discussing. One thing I think is interesting is at least, Andy's talking about going to grad school, potentially staying in the Northwest. The other 2 of you are kind of saying you want to be rooted. I will say I had times when I struggled with that dichotomy, like coming from, I grew up half an hour from here, less than half an hour. I've joked with you guys, coming to Bloomington was coming to the big city, so that was, and there was part of me that wanted to stay when I had a job in Indianapolis, wanted to stay here. Even if I was going to go to grad school in New York, I was going to come back to the Midwest, be close to family, because I had the same kinds of feelings. Instead, I went out to LA and then I went to Beijing. But here's the thing, I came back and here I am. So you don't have to, you can be rooted, but not stay rooted. You can go out there and, push like Abby, you actually did that when you did your backpacking, right? But you can do that professionally as well. And I'm not saying you should or you have to. I'm just saying you can always come home. And so if you feel like you really have a strong connection just to a place, you may end up finding you appreciate it more once you've gone somewhere else. So that's not so much for the 3 of you, but it's if anybody else is listening to this recording, whether it's our students, your fellow peers and so forth, or if this is being broadcast to aliens in a different solar system, or maybe Wally is like cleaning up garbage from the planet and he's playing this on some loudspeaker for some reason, I don't know. But you can always come home, so there's no reason to be afraid to try something. And it's interesting between the 3 of you. To hear anybody like Courtney, for you to actually find a place, you remind me of my brother. And don't take anything weird from that, but I'm sure I've told the story. He's one of the few human beings I've met who had a passion for something really early, and then it just stuck with it. He's loved weather since he was like 6 or 7. And the joke is like, we didn't have cable because we grew up in the country. So if we went on vacation, the hotel would be the only place you ever got cable. I'd want to watch MTV, big surprise. He'd want to watch, he's 6, 7 years old. He'd want to watch the Weather Channel. Are you kidding me? What kind of nonsense is that? But now he's chief meteorologist, at a station in Arkansas. But so for you to have found something you really love, and now you're actually projecting out that I might be willing to take over this, it's a fairly unusual thing. So that's really great. I think, and then Abby, to hear you've been doing this residential and you're learning a lot, and you enjoy it. There's ups and downs, strikes and gutters. But now you want to try the other side of the picture. I think that's absolutely a valid pursuit. And of course, Andy, you're looking into grad school and going for a kind of a very specific kind of passion that you've got. So all three very different kind of approaches, each one equally valid. Just really glad to hear, I'm not hearing from any of you that I wish I had never gotten this degree. And, so our professors were a bunch of idiots. Maybe you're thinking that, I don't know. But, it is, you could take whatever you think, even if you had a terrible time in the program, once you get that degree, there's a lot you can do with it. You can always complain about us later, but once you have that degree and you've got a certain amount of knowledge and experience, there's plenty you can go out and do. And that's what I'm hearing from you. So anybody who's listening to this, kind of take heart in that. I think this is a really good example of 3 people who've come through the program and are making their way pretty successfully early on in their career.
I think that was a wonderful way to end. That wrapped up everything. I totally agree with Dorian. I think just hearing from everybody that you're using your degree, you're happy with where you're going, even if you're on a stepping stone of your career path, you're still headed in the right direction. And I think that's very, very important to hear for the students. At least I definitely value that since I'm graduating now, in the pandemic, and I'm super stressed about getting a job. It's very good and to hear some positive outcomes from this program, I have to say. But that is going to be it for us tonight. So thank you for joining us, everybody. And thank you for presenting and being vulnerable about what you've been doing in your lives.
Thanks for having us.
Definitely, yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.